It's the joints, then the hair begins to go, then the eyes begin to give way. But, you know, my wife and I have a 2-year-old son, Trey, now. So, something still works, thank God. All right, enough of that. Okay. My story is a story about achieving things that sometimes you just don't think are quite possible to achieve. It's a polio story. I was diagnosed right here in Corning, New York at the Corning Hospital with polio at 10 months of age. I was taken to the Ithaca Reconstruction Home up in Ithaca, New York. That was my home for the next 11 months of my life. My mom related a story to me when they first got there on the first day that she went in to see the doctor with my dad. And she said to the doctor, "Doctor, if my son can only walk." The doctor looked at her and said, "No, Mrs. Clark, if your son can only learn to use his brain, think for himself." It took me a lot of years, but that doctor was dead on. It took me a lot of years to realize that. My parents never treated me any differently than my other two brothers while we were growing up. And I didn't feel any different at that point in time until I began grade school. And in the first grade, I started realizing that I was different than the other kids. You know, kids are cruel. They pick on you. They say things. And I started to feel different. It was about the first grade when our teacher announced that we were going to have a walking field trip to the Northside Fire Department, which still stands today. And boy, did the anxiety level hit when I realized I was going to have to walk 5 blocks to the fire station. So, and she announced it like 3 weeks ahead of time, so she gave me 3 long agonizing weeks. And every day it got closer, I got more anxiety. Well, the day came when the trip was due, and I didn't want to go to school. But my parents made me go to school that day. So I went to school full of anxiety, and teacher announces, "Okay, let's get ready to go on the field trip." Well, young Dave immediately headed to the back of the line because I didn't want to hold up this group. I was dreading this walk. And I didn't want to go up front because I knew I was going to hold everybody up. Just as we start walking, getting ready to walk on this field trip, a classmate of mine pulls up with a little red wagon. And he says, "Dave, jump in. I want you to ride with me." Classmate's name was Ernie Pound. I never forgot him. And he pulls me to the fire department, and it made a fun trip for me to go to the fire department that day. And all the other kids made a game of it as well. They all wanted to pull Dave and take their turns. So it made me feel good. It made the kids feel good. And I don't know how Ernie was able to have the empathy at that age, but he did. Some 50 years later, I didn't see Ernie again. He moved out of town. Some 50 years later, friends of mine found Ernie, and at my first book signing here in Corning in 2008, I was signing books. And as I was signing, I was asking, "Okay, who do I sign this to?" And one gentleman pushed a book under my nose. I said, "Who do I sign this to?" He said, "You can sign this to Ernie Pound." Whew. And we have that reunion here. We have the reunion. I thought we had the reunion here. Here it is. How are you, buddy? You know you're in there. Where are you now?
I'm in Odessa.
You're in Odessa. This is a surprise. You knew he was coming, didn't you?
He did.
You knew he was coming.
He's quite a guy, that is.
You found him. I can't believe it.
Thank you very much. Have a picture.
Still gets me. Thank you. Ernie, that story inspired the Dave Clark Pulling Each Other Along Award, and we were able to give Ernie that award up at the college here a little over a year ago. So that was a great feeling to do that. Another story I want to relate happened over at the Gregg School here in third grade. Up until third grade, the gym teachers that I had would tell me, they would tell the class what we were doing that particular day, and then they would say, Dave, we want you to go to the sideline. They'd always have a chair sitting up so I could watch the other kids have fun. Third grade, I had a new teacher named Mr. Snetchler. First day of class, Mr. Snetchler tells us what we're going to do. When he tells us what we're going to do, he says, okay, let's go. I head to the sideline automatically. And I hear this booming voice behind me. Where are you going? And I tremble a little bit, 8 years old, tremble. I turn around and go, I'm going, not in my class, you're not, he says. He says, there might be some activities in this class that you won't be able to do, but you won't know that unless you try. He changed my life. The activity that day was climbing the ropes to the ceiling. Well, I got in line, and as I got closer to my turn, I kept, that old anxiety feeling crept back in. And I got up there, my turn, and I looked up, and I said, there is no way in hell. And I put one hand over the other, started pulling. Couldn't use my feet as the, quote, normal kids could to kind of hold yourself in place. Kept pulling. I got to the top. When I slid down, I burned the hell out of my hands. But let me tell you, that was the best burn feeling I ever had. And to top that day off, I was the only kid in our class to get to the top, and Mr. Snetchler gave me an ice cream bar as a reward. My first professional payout. Another quick story, my dad, who I hope is here today. My dad and I played catch every day in our driveway, stone driveway, every day. He'd find time to come home and play catch with me. We were playing catch. He's throwing me pop-ups. I misjudged one, hit me right in the head, knocked me down. I'm a snow angel in the stones. I got a little blood on my elbows. He comes down. I think he's going to pat me and say, okay, we'll try it again tomorrow. He picked me up, patted me on the butt, and he said, Dave, let's try that again. That stuck with me. You get knocked down, you get back up, and you try it again. That story has stuck with me for my life, and I thank my dad for that. I had the greatest parents in the world, by the way. And I grew up in the greatest city in the world for where I grew up. Still my home. I'm still here. I began to dream at that point. I might want to play professional baseball if I can get that far. And I discovered that there's two types of dreamers. There's dreamers that dream, and there's dreamers that dream and do. You got to be the latter to get anywhere. You got to dream and you got to do. And you got to be willing to prepare for the opportunity that comes along, but may never come along. But you got to be willing to put that time in to prepare for any opportunity that does come along. I did. I worked out 6 days a week, 4 hours a day. I ran 5 miles a day with these crutches. They were only 13-minute miles, but I ran 5 miles a day with these crutches to get ready for something that may never come. An opportunity may never come. Fortunately for me, a scout named Art Gaines of the Pittsburgh Pirates organization gave me a shot. I parlayed that shot into a 10-year career as a professional pitcher using a knuckleball. I was a knuckleball specialist. And ended up blowing my arm out as I went across the pond and played Major League Baseball in the Swedish Major Leagues. But when one door closes, usually another one is opened up for me. So I blew my arm out, didn't know what I was going to do. Opportunity came up to buy the Indianapolis Clowns baseball club that I had played for in the mid-'70s. I bought it because I reinvented myself as a first baseman and came back and played 5 more years as a first baseman for the Indianapolis Clowns. I had to buy the team because that's the only way I was going to be able to play. So in 1988, I got hit with Postpolio, which is the reason I use the scooter today when I have to. And that pretty much closed my career as an active player. I went into coaching and have done a lot of things in the game and still in the game today. But I want to relate one last story to you. My mom, after my playing career had ended, she came into me one day and she had tears in her eyes as she handed me this envelope. And she explained to me that when I first had aspirations to go play professional baseball and that the Pittsburgh Pirates were going to give me an opportunity, that she had written a letter to the scout, Mr. Art Gaines, back in 1971. She had written him a letter asking him to please let me down easy, that it was my dream to play professional baseball, but she knew that the odds were probably against that, and to let me down easy. She had the return letter sent to our neighbors, so I wouldn't get it. That was the letter. And with tears in her eyes, she said, "How could I have ever doubted you?" So I had the best parents in the world. And they let me accomplish what I did. They and my brothers. I want to leave you with one last thought. As soon as I regain my composure. Get a passion. Whatever that passion is, get a passion, work hard, and give it all you got, because there's not one dream in this world that's impossible to achieve. Thank you for having me here today.